This is a revised analysis of the downward acceleration of the World Trade Center Building 7, which collapsed in a manner suggestive of controlled demolition on September 11, 2001. My earlier analysis, which is posted on YouTube under my own name, was based on the best information I had at the time, but now I've been able to improve on my results using new information available in the recently released NIST final report on Building 7. Despite the accurate data available to NIST, their final report makes dishonest claims about the rate of fall of the building. I will come back to the NIST report at the end of this video. In my earlier video analysis, I used the width of the building, which is known to be 100 meters, to calibrate the scale of the image. In this remake, I used the vertical spacing of the windows visible as horizontal streaks on the face of the building. From this, I was able to identify the 29th floor, which is listed in the NIST document as having a height of 683 feet 6 inches, measuring from some baseline which they don't specify. They have the blueprints item, but I take this measurement to be reliable. The other measurement they give is the height of the roof line, which they state is 925 feet 4 inches above their baseline. The difference of these two heights converted to meters is the basis for the calibration of this video. The actual measurements were done exactly as before. The cursor was placed on the corner of the building and marks were placed frame by frame. The built-in functions of the Physics Toolkit software capture the positions and times of these marks in a data table from which it computes and displays various kinds of graphs. I'm here plotting velocity as a function of time. The slope of this kind of graph gives the acceleration. Notice that the data hovers close to 0 for nearly a second, and then it drops precipitously. From the moment of the drop, the slope of the line appears essentially constant for about 2.5 seconds. By marking 2 data points, the program can compute the best straight line to fit the data for the linear portion of the graph. The slope of the line is the acceleration. Down here at the bottom, the computed acceleration is shown, minus 9.885 meters per second squared. The minus sign indicates downward acceleration. The acceleration of gravity for New York City is 9.802 meters per second squared, so the measured acceleration is within 1% of the acceleration of gravity. Given the graininess and size of the image, 1% is not a significant difference from the actual acceleration of gravity. So the most accurate way to characterize the result is to say the acceleration of the building is indistinguishable from free fall. Notice that a little after the 3-second mark on our graph, about 2.5 seconds after the building drops, the acceleration ceases to be uniform. This indicates that the falling building is starting to encounter more resistance. Any measurement of the average acceleration that continues for more than the first 2.5 seconds of fall will show a lower average acceleration, masking the fact that for a significant 2.5 seconds, the building was in literal free fall. Free fall can only be achieved if there is zero resistance to the motion. In other words, the gravitational potential energy of the building is not available to crush or deform anything. During free fall, all of the gravitational potential energy of the building is being converted into kinetic energy and nothing else. Any breaking, bending, crushing, or pulverizing of building components is occurring without the assistance of the free-falling portion of the building. Any force the top portion of the building might exert on the lower portion would be reflected in a reaction force that would produce an observable slowing of the rate of fall. A reaction force is observable in this graph only in the last seconds when the velocity strays from the straight line. Let's return to the NIST final report on WTC 7. I would like to clarify one thing right away. On page 40 there is a phrase, quote, assuming that
that takes us to the gist of what was going on there. Was that clear to everybody, what David did there and what he showed? That was clear with us on that? So here is, I want to pronounce his name as Sham, but I think it might be Cheyenne.
I think it's actually pronounced Sham.
It is Sham.
I was corrected later on. I said Cheyenne. It's spelled Cheyenne, but it's Sham Cinder or Cheyenne or something like that.
Yeah, what an unfortunate coincidence. This is a guy, okay, you're going to have to, you know, some of the other stuff I showed that this says some pretty funny things. Well, You're ready to get it straight from the horse's mouth.
It is the top dog.
Yeah, this is a top dog, and this is a technical briefing. This is not a briefing for laymen or anything. This is a technical briefing for people with technical expertise. And they only allowed questions from people with some sort of a technical background. And David Chandler submitted a question based on his association with the American
Association of Physics Teachers.
Okay. David is a high school physics teacher. So they bought that association and they let him ask a question. So they're going to read David's question and then this guy's going to do his best to answer. Oops.
Our next question comes from David Chandler of the American Association of Physics Teachers. Any number of competent measurements using a variety of methods indicate the northwest corner of WTC 7 fell with an acceleration within a few percent of the acceleration of gravity. Yet your report contradicts this, claiming 40% slower than free fall based on a single data point. How can such a publicly visible, easily measurable quantity be set aside?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Any number of measurements using a variety of methods indicate the northwest corner of WTC 7 fell with an acceleration within a few percent of the acceleration of gravity. Yet the report contradicts this, claiming 40% slower than the free fall based on a single data point.
Well, first of all, gravity is the loading function that applies to the structure, applies to every body, all bodies on this planet, not just in ground zero.
Catch that? Well, gravity works everywhere on the planet, not just at ground zero.
My goodness.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to make it clear for you. All right, so let's see what else you have to say.
The analysis showed there's a difference in time between a free fall time. A free fall time would be an object that has no structural components below it. And if you look at the analysis of the video, it shows that the time it takes for the 17, for the roof line of the video to collapse down the 17 floors that you can actually see in the video, below which you can't see anything in the video, is about 3.9 seconds. What the analysis shows, and the structural analysis shows, the collapse analysis shows that same time that it took for the structural model to come down from the roof line all the way for those 17 floors to disappear is 5.4 seconds. It's
now, he just got through saying that the video shows this collapse happening in 3.9 seconds, which is what free fall would be, but his analysis shows 5.4 seconds, which is what you would expect because there's structural elements underneath it. Yeah, but that's not what reality is.
But 1.5 seconds, or roughly 40% more time for that free fall to happen. And that is not at all unusual because there was a structural resistance that was provided in this particular case. And you had a sequence of structural failures that had to take place, and where everything was not instantaneous.
And there he's speaking the truth. You do have structural elements below there, and the things are not going to happen instantaneous. And so anything that, any significant amount of time of the building coming down at free fall is simply not possible by this guy's own admission. Okay. I'm setting you up here. The next slide has all of the information required to positively state that the official government-approved conspiracy theory is false. It also contains more than enough information to establish beyond any reasonable doubt that controlled demolition was used to bring WTC 7 down. This page that you're going to see is straight out of the NIST final report. As a result of David Chandler's work, they were forced to acknowledge that during stage 2, the building came down at free fall.